Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. In today's video I'm bringing you my update 1.46 wish list. This is made up of points that I might have seen kind of over the lifespan of Gran Turismo 7 or maybe since the last update, in hopes that these will be fixed in either the next update or into ongoing future updates. Now if there is anything that I miss off this list and there is things that you do want to see in future updates for Gran Turismo 7, be sure to list them down below. I'll be selecting the best comments of the bunch and some of the most unique ones of the bunch to put into my update 1.46 community wishlist video a little bit later down the line. This is your chance to have your say in the world of Gran Turismo and hopefully put your ideas forward and hopefully make Polyphony aware of really what the community wants. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it and let's talk about some of my points and some of the things that I want to see in update 1.46 and beyond. So let's start with the most obvious pick of the bunch and a track. You know, to be totally honest, it's been a very long time since we've seen a proper circuit at this point. Now for me, anything would do, whether that would be a kind of, more fantasy one like Midfield or the likes of Grindelwald and stuff like that, or even the likes of a real world race circuit. This way we know they've kind of secured the license for future installments as well. So yeah, in my opinion, a circuit is a must, and I don't mean a dirt one like Lake Louise. Don't get me wrong, that track was absolutely fantastic at the time, but it's very limited in its use. I feel like players get a much bigger use out of proper tarmac circuit based racetracks, so for me it's an absolute must. When we look back in time, the last real world circuit we got was in November of 2022 with Road Atlanta. Then in terms of the last time we actually got a proper tarmac race circuit was the very, I guess, hit and miss version of, kind of Grand Valley Highway 1, which kind of went down well with some players, especially VR players, and other players just cannot stand the fact that they kind of butchered an original classic. So for me, a track is a must. It's been far too long at this point, and hopefully we do start to see some movement in terms of a track coming to Gran Turismo 7 that isn't rally. Next up is going to be known issues fixed. Now you might be wondering, what do I mean by this one? Quite often they do fix the known issues. Now I know you'll probably be thinking, well, the known issues do get fixed, and well, yeah, of course they do, they're known issues. However, a lot of them do hang around for the longest time. I believe it was the split screen glitch that was hanging around for probably up to close to, maybe 2 years at the point that it did finally get fixed. That is far too long for a known issue to be hanging around in the game. Regardless of how many people play split screen and stuff like that, it was still affecting the game and it was still a known issue for a very long time. I feel like when it comes to known issues, it's very hit and miss. Sometimes they'll put a patch and an update out for, a known issue within inside a week. Take the Ford GT BOP complete mess recently. That one was in there for a week and then got completely fixed with update 1.45. Some of the other issues, however, do hang around in the game for far too long without, Polyphony seemingly giving a crap, which is a massive shame. Again, I know that a lot of people didn't play a lot of split screen and stuff, but for example, taking nearly 2 years to fix a known issue is just absolutely ridiculous and just far too long. If it's a known issue, it should be fixed straight away and that list should reset ready for the next update, and they should also start adding more in there as well. So the fact that every time something gets reported as an issue, it becomes fixable and then fixed for the next update, and then the list obviously resets for the next time it rolls around. So anyway, let's move on to the next point. That's going to be part selling. Part selling seems like something that should already be in the game. If you've noted, when it comes to the likes of the engine swap tickets and some of these ultimate tuning parts that you get, especially for cars that you may not want, they all have a, amount of credits that part is worth assigned to the ticket. However, there is no reason to then go ahead and get them credits, or there's no way, should I say, to actually go and get the credits that's worth. Maybe you get a part for a car that you don't want, you just want to get rid of it and sell it on for the credits that's assigned to the ticket. Unfortunately, no, there is no way to sell parts at this point, and it would totally make sense. It's been around about maybe a year or just over a year that we've had ultimate tuning and buyable engine swaps where we can go ahead and purchase these. For the fact that there is no way to sell these extra parts we have lying around, only be able to discard them, is a massive unfortunate shame, and it feels like an obvious no-brainer. The fact that these do have a monetary value, I guess, onto the card itself, and no way to sell them just really doesn't make sense. Again, it feels like yet another oversight by Polyphony and another strange little thing just to leave out of the overall economy. So yep, part selling is an absolute must. I know this is a popular one with a lot of people, and I know it's been brought to my attention multiple times. Again, I'm totally with you on that one. It's always bugged me. Next up is going to be VGT program phased out. Okay, so let me start this point off with, I am not a VGT hater. I don't hate them as soon as a silhouette comes up. I don't hate them as soon as it gets announced way in advance. I don't see the reason of hating a car that hasn't actually entered the game yet. And obviously with the most recent one like Skoda, where it's been kind of revealed and most people are like, oh well, where's the rest of the brand? Look, at the end of the day, this is an entry point for that brand to get themselves in Gran Turismo. I am sure that down the line we will see more of that brand. In that way, VGTs are great. It opens the door to new manufacturers to enter the game, and it opens the door for, you know, newer models and different models to come from that manufacturer apart from the VGT. In that sense, it's good, and some of the most iconic cars to come to Gran Turismo in recent memory have been through that VGT program. The likes of the Tomahawk and some of all the other crazy cars that have actually been very, very useful over time. I don't hate the VGT program, but it has recently just celebrated its 10th anniversary, and I feel like I guess since the end of 2022 after the Ferrari VGT, opinion has massively shifted. There has been an influx of VGT cars in 23 and I guess the start of 24, and I think a lot of people are just, you know, kind of sick of them at this point. Whilst it does have its upsides as some very cool concept cars and, you know, I guess an entryway for manufacturers to enter the series, I feel like it is being massively overdone. And when there is so many real world cars lacking, the fact that they continue on with this VGT program sometimes feels like a massive kick in the teeth. I just feel like it's run its course at this point, and I feel like it's been around for far too long, and the focus needs to shift away from the VGTs, maybe start to phase them out, and then with Gran Turismo 8 start an entirely different program. Again, it could be along the lines of concept cars once again, or maybe something completely different, but I feel like the VGT program at this point in time has been around far too long. I feel like it's been overused and oversaturated in this latter half of GT7's life cycle so far. I feel like it just needs to either slow down or be phased out entirely. Let me know what you think. So if you're like me and you're part of a racing league, or maybe you even run your own racing league and such, you may know what I'm on about here. Basically, in custom races, you do have the ability to set custom weather. Now, what this means is you can do variable weather, so maybe you can go from sun to rain to sun again, things like that. Basically, this glitch involves the weather just never ever appearing if you put the rain on. Now, what I mean by this, I don't mean it kind of skims across the bottom of the radar. I mean that it just won't show up and actually do what you've set it at. It's just a massive annoyance when you set up a race to have rain and, you know, cause a bit of drama mid-race for it to never ever appear. Even if you did kind of one slot of sunshine and the rest rain, there is still a chance that the rain just won't ever bother turning up. And again, this has been present for the last few updates. Prior to that, custom weather worked absolutely as intended and would actually come along and happen. However, since then there is a very, very high chance that it just doesn't work as intended, and Polyphony, I don't even think know about this one at this point. It is a massive shame, and for me is a definite fix. Okay, so my next point is another very minor one, however it can affect the game, I guess, in rather quite a big way, the frame rate fix. So what I mean by this is the fact that no matter what you have the game set on, whether that be for frame rate or graphics, even with it set to frame rate, there is a high chance it will begin to absolutely drop and begin to ruin itself, really, in some races. It's very, very frustrating when it does happen, because it is only very slight, But in a game like Gran Turismo, where you could be in a World Series race, or a serious sport mode race, or maybe you're in a racing league or something like that, and then to get the frame rate absolutely drop for only a very fraction of a second, but still drop nonetheless, is massively frustrating. And no, I'm not talking about connection issues, I'm talking about the frame rate beginning to stutter. It does seem more prominent at certain venues and certain tracks. Le Mans, for one, is one where it does seem to happen regular, even if you have it set to prioritizing your frame rate, at least on the PlayStation 5 version. I don't know about PlayStation 4, but it does seem to happen a lot there, especially when there's a group of cars. It did happen to me in the World Series race as well recently, that we was all going into sort of the left-right towards the Dunlop Bridge at the start of the lap, and I got a huge kind of slob in frame rate, and it just, yeah, went on for what seemed like forever. But again, it's only realistically a fraction of a second, or maybe up to a second, but it is still enough to completely affect and ruin not only your race, but other people's as well. So yeah, frame rate definitely needs looking into. It seems worse, I guess, more recently than it did when the game actually first rolled around. Another one that I'm seeing a lot more complaints about recently is the penalty system, and I do fully agree that the penalty system is rather quite broken. It really is a hit and miss situation with it, whether that be the likes of, pit line penalties being very, very off, and, sometimes almost impossible not to get at certain tracks. Road Atlanta for me screams as one where it almost seems like no matter how well you take that pit, you will end up with a penalty. Yellow flag penalties are, again, kind of very hit and miss. Sometimes you'll just have someone spin out, a yellow flag will get going, the car will get going, and the yellow flag will stay out for a fraction of a second, and you end up overtaking a car which is now moving again, and all of a sudden, at these high speeds where you can't help but get past that car, you will end up with a 3-second penalty and the likes of that. So again, it's very hit and miss. Again, track limit penalties can be an absolute nightmare at some tracks. It's very, very inconsistent, with some people receiving penalties for almost nothing, and then others kind of cutting the full track and receiving absolutely nothing at all. So it's just very, very weird how the penalty system works. I definitely feel like this needs looking into. For me, the penalty system that we had at the end of GT Sports Life Cycle was absolutely spot on, and I just feel like ever since GT7 released, it's kind of just took that step back in how the penalty system itself does work. And that's going to move me into the final point. This isn't really one for the game itself, but this is for Gran Turismo itself. Real community feedback. What I mean by this is proper employers from Polyphony actually taking note and actually showing interest in the issues and wants and needs of Gran Turismo players. Look, at this point, the game's been out for over 2 years. It's been through a very rocky road in its life cycle already. The release was an absolute mess, then it picked up again. Then there was a complete lack of content, and then we had a big update, and then again it's kind of been very hit and miss since update, I guess Spec 2 update. And I feel like Polyphony, or every complaint that players have towards Polyphony and Gran Turismo, or things that we want to see and such, just falls on complete deaf ears. Again, it was like what I mentioned when the game first released. They need to put a clear roadmap out to show us what direction they want to take this series in, to be more open and honest with the player base, that if something is or isn't coming, to let us know where the game's at and how well it's doing. I just feel like proper community feedback from Polyphony directly themselves is an absolute must at this point. I hate the secretive bit about them. I hate the fact that we're, as a community, completely begging for things or really wanting fixes implemented or features, and then never knowing if that's going to happen until maybe 6 months down the line when it might actually happen. A proper feedback section from Polyphony, maybe a proper community manager who's going to turn around and say, okay, yeah, we're looking into this, yeah, we're trying to do this, no, we can't do that. Just open honesty from Polyphony is an absolute must. This way I feel like a lot of people would calm down the hate towards this game, or just kind of being overkill about how bad the game is and stuff like that. So yeah, I honestly feel like a proper community feedback section and a proper community manager is an absolute must. Anyway, that's my points that I want to see from update 1.46 and beyond. Let me know what you want to see down below for a chance to feature in my community edition a little bit later down the line. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.